Welcome to Hashgraph TV. Join us as we explore in each episode how the digital future is being built, powered by Hedera Hashgraph.
Hello, welcome to Hashgraph TV from the Hashgraph Association. I'm Will Diath. I head up growth and business development at the Hashgraph Association, also known as THA, which is part of the Hedera Hashgraph public distributed ledger ecosystem, or Hedera Trust Layer, as I like to call it. We're honoured to have Maha Al-Saadi, the head of regulatory affairs at Qatar Financial Centre, also known as QFC, with us today. Her extensive expertise in navigating complex regulatory landscapes and her instrumental role in shaping compliance strategies and driving impactful initiatives make her a very valuable addition to our discussion. Welcome, Maha.
Hello, Will. Thank you so much for having me.
That's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And it's been a while since we've seen each other. I think it was in Zurich a few months ago. So great to see you again.
Lovely seeing you as well.
So we've had quite a lot of activity at the Hashgraph Association with Qatar Financial Centre. I hope that might, but I've got a few questions and a few things we love, I think, and the viewers would love to hear from you. The QFC Digital Assets Framework 2024 introduction is a game changer as far as I'm concerned, and I think most people think. What were the key regulatory considerations behind creating this comprehensive legal foundation, when it comes to digital assets in Qatar?
This is a wonderful question. I think the biggest consideration is the fact that Qatar Financial Centre the digital asset regulatory framework decided to focus on real-world asset tokenization rather than cryptocurrencies. Whereas when we're looking to Europe, we started with MiCA, which regulated crypto asset service providers and stablecoin providers, e-money token providers. Here, we decided to basically start with the regulation of real-world assets, security tokens, where we saw the most value and efficiency and liquidity in the market. So I think this is the biggest differentiator. And then add to that, we looked into applying international standards and best practice. And in this consideration, we were looking into safety, cybersecurity, consumer protection, and the different roles that token service providers will be playing within the ecosystem.
Very good. So I guess that's one of the advantages of not being right at the very start, is you can look at what's happening, where the value were, and you can extract as you said, the things that were going to be of value for Qatar and the growth and sustainable growth. That's great. That's a great insight. So how does QFC Digital Assets Framework ensure a balance between innovation and compliance, particularly, as you just said, when it comes to tokenization?
Qatar Financial Centre, first of all, is an onshore jurisdiction. So we have Qatar Financial Centre Authority, where I work, and then we have Qatar Financial Centre Regulatory Authority, the regulator. And we're doing all this in very close collaboration with Qatar Central Bank. So basically, when we're looking into the different aspects of digital assets and the token service providers that we have, the first thing is we have to assess, is this a regulated activity or a non-regulated activity? Depending on the nature, scale of complexity of the roles that the token service providers will be playing and the different underlying that we're talking about, we have to make sure that token service providers are not overburdened by regulatory requirements. So if you're providing, for example, a technological solution or an infrastructure, we don't see you as regulated. Therefore, the requirements that you would have to satisfy will be sort of more proportionate and let's say less complex, as if when you're doing regulated activities dealing with client money and generating tokens, safekeeping these tokens. So I think we have to look into a regulation as providing a parameter that would ensure safety, a parameter that will provide regulatory clarity, but also in that sense, not overburden the token service providers and requirements if the risk is low. So the distinction between regulated and unregulated is one of, I think, our biggest advantages. And it's more proportionate. It's risk-based rather than rule-based and descriptive. So you would have to tell us how you're going to comply. We're not going to sit there and tell you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. It has to make sense. Yeah.
So I mean, if I'm thinking about what you said then, kind of very high level, it's going to boil down to the use case, like you said. If you're doing something that is very financial servicey, then there's going to be regulations there. But if you're providing a technology stack that's for a business process that isn't necessarily to do with financial services, but it is obviously using DLT, they're going to be seen very differently. And that's where, as you say, the uniqueness is. That's great. Again,
yes.
You can learn from all these other mistakes that other countries have made in the last 5 or 6 years. So fantastic. With that in mind, Qatar is rapidly emerging as a leader in digital asset regulation, and what we're speaking about now is clearly demonstrating that. How does this framework compare to other leading jurisdictions? It kind of actually follows on from my comment just now. How does it, compare to other, and what makes it unique? I think you touched on it a bit, but is there anything else there you can mention?
I think the fact that we have an onshore jurisdiction, basically, some other jurisdictions are free zones. So whenever an entity decides to come to Qatar Financial Centre or register as a token service provider, they're entitled to do business within Qatar Financial Centre or from it within the state of Qatar or abroad. I think that we also have the possibility of tackling multiple different asset classes, be it security tokens, but also the mix between conventional and Islamic could be also a very interesting combination, because technically if it's a sukuk, if it's an Islamic bond or conventional bond, basically you can still be able to demonstrate that and provide that with the Qatar Financial Centre. And I think that we're also providing a lot of the startups and the fintechs that are coming here with excellent opportunities to test their use cases. And that's why when we introduce our digital asset framework, we also launched our digital asset lab, where we would be providing certain elements of success. And maybe we'll be talking about that once we talk about the partnership that we have with Hashgraph, is that we also want to learn from the industry and we want to evolve with our regulatory framework as we go along. I also mentioned that we're focusing on real-world asset tokenization and tokenization rather than crypto. So this is another differentiator. And we're based on English common law. So it will make it easy for international associations and institutions to come and set up shop here. It's not very foreign. We also have our own court, which makes arbitration easier. If, God forbid, it's ever needed, but we have our own court. And in addition, what is very unique about Qatar Financial Centre, and I think doesn't get a lot of traction, is the fact that we also have our own data security office and we have our own employment standard office. So basically, with this whole package, you're really exposing yourself to the best international practice that you can get. And what I'm seeing a lot is that a lot of these institutions that are coming to Qatar, these token service providers, are using us as a way to launch the broader region, because you have all the elements of success, and we have from tech to incentives that we'll be providing, like our fintech circle, working very closely with other stakeholders, the Qatar Development Bank, for example. So I think we're trying to make it as attractive and make success as possible and attainable as we can for the participants.
Yeah, it's almost like a one-stop shop for the GCC region. Come here, we've got everything you need. You can build a foundation here, and or a leap pad if you like build it out, and then when you're ready, off you go. You're ready to go with confidence into those other markets within GCC and the world, I should say, but certainly GCC. Now, one thing you mentioned there, and obviously you mentioned sectors like equity tokenization, real estate, sukuk. Now, for those people that maybe aren't so aware of this, would you be able to just quickly, at a very, very high level, just explain what that is for those viewers that may not be aware or maybe need a bit more light shone on it?
Yes, sure. So basically, one of the things that Qatar Financial Centre in Qatar is very well known for is the provision of Islamic finance or Sharia compliance products and offerings. Islamic finance is based on certain principles. There's no speculation. You cannot make money on money. There is no interest. And you always have to make sure that the underlying is a permitted it's a permitted asset. So we're not allowed to gamble. We're not allowed to deal with certain industries that could go against the Islamic religion or Sharia. And when it comes to sukuk is, very simply put, is Islamic bonds. So basically, the same technological frameworks that would apply to issuing a digital bond would be more or less also implemented for the issuance of sukuk or Islamic bonds. We also have an additional element here where we have to ensure that Sharia compliant, as I mentioned. So, for example, for us, gambling is not allowed, alcohol is not allowed, etc. And we would have to have some sort of an approval from what we call a Sharia board. They would be approving certain products, initiatives, etc. So I think that this is very simply put the way that I would summarize it. And we have different mechanisms like musharaka, which is based on profit and loss sharing, etc. So I think Islamic finance goes very, very well hand in hand with the concept that digital assets and DLT was trying to promote, which is a more just and more fair access to finance. So it could be a very nice use case. And also, we're seeing a lot of conversions in the use of Islamic finance and sustainable finance, or green and transitional finance. So this could unlock a lot of these use cases and provide additional liquidity through standardization as well.
And what that makes me think of is what we spoke about when you said, you're like a one-stop shop for GCC. Now, if an organization comes in to QFC and sets up and builds its structure, and they are wanting to get involved with sukuk or Sharia compliance, start with you, and then, quite frankly, anywhere in the world that has those requirements, the world is the oyster. Because you've built it out there, and whether that be in somewhere in Southeast Asia, GCC, Africa, where it's relevant, you can jump, you can use as a springboard Qatar.
I love how you put it. I couldn't have put it better. Yes.
Anyone think we rehearsed this, but we didn't. For those of you that are watching. So let's get on to a bit more closer to home with myself, right? We've got a partnership, the Hashgraph Association. We launched a $50 million digital asset venture studio with you. What role does regulatory clarity play? Well, we kind of spoke about this and where it attracts Web3 to Qatar, but and we covered it somewhat. But is there any other? Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on this, with us and the 50 million, and what we'd like to try and build and who we want to attract and what this means for Qatar and QFC?
Yes, I think that with our partnership and the $50 million that you're committing to Qatar in the digital asset sphere, I think it cannot be more valuable, because we might provide the licensing, we might provide the test bed, but we need someone who can walk through with the clients and provide the technical expertise, and also invest in these ideas that would provide it additional scale. We had a number of use cases that we were discovering together, which were that goes hand in hand with the overall digital asset framework and the lab that we had. We were discussing real estate. We were discussing carbon credit tokenization, Islamic sukuk, because this is an area which I think will be super unique for Qatar. And we also were looking into private shares tokenizations, because QFC firms have their own company registration office, and this could be something that we're testing. And the fact that you're bringing international expertise and you've been around for quite a while, an institutional grade clarity and support is very much needed. And also within your network, you'll be supporting the startups that would graduate from our cohorts. Indeed. With additional international exposure. So we just want the best for them and want them to grow. And this is a very good recipe for success, I would say.
So, on that note, just a quick one here. Anyone wishing to get involved or look further into what we are doing together, whether it's a startup or a larger organisation enterprise, they can find us, obviously, websites on LinkedIn, right, Maha? That's the best way to approach us. And whether it's us or our colleagues, we'll be able to put you in touch with them. But I thought it was a good point to raise, as you mentioned, startups, because I know a lot the startups are interested, but never quite sure where to start. Well, start with us, and we'll
Yeah.
lead you the right way. Now, Hashgraph Association obviously it's promoting, and it's doing a lot. Is Hedera, as I call it, the trust layer, Hedera Hashgraph, and I think that's also quite relevant, Maha, because we are the most efficient, if not carbon negative, network, public distributed ledger technology network out there. So I think this also goes nicely with, as you mentioned, things like carbon credit solutions and beyond. Because one of the things that I found when I talk to enterprises that are not involved with using DLT or blockchain is that there's this idea, and quite rightly in some cases, that it's a very inefficient technology. I think that stems from things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And Ethereum is a bit better these days, the technology's changed. But when it comes to us and Hedera, we literally are carbon negative. And that argument to use us is out of the window. And that means that we attract a lot of corporations that otherwise, and even startups, and that otherwise would not be so interested, or have maybe kind of pushed the whole idea of putting distributed ledger technology, sort of pushed it aside because they didn't want to be seen as, not sustainable when everyone is driving towards becoming more sustainable.
Yes. I think you've put it very, very well. And I remember in my previous life in Germany, when we were discussing MiCA, the Marketing Crypto Assets Regulations, we had a lot of back and forth between the European supervisory authorities and the Commission, where there was the intention to ban proof of work due to its impact on the environment. Yes. And in the end, we decided that we would not be banning proof of work, but we would have certain transparency and disclosure requirements on carbon and ESG requirements. So I think by that, Hashgraph and Hedera is already proving compliance with the first comprehensive crypto asset regulation worldwide. And I cannot think of any other blockchain or DLT platform that would provide that. Yes, Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake, but I don't think they can claim to be net zero. So this is really impressive.
No, and that's the same. I mean, that's actually one of the many reasons that I came to the group myself. There was a lot of them, but this was certainly a contributory factor for me. From a personal point of view. And as you say, I'm finding this is becoming more and more relevant as we go closer towards 2030 and with certainly the regulatory pushes and demands that are coming within Europe. And I think we'll eventually see move, further across the world. And the other thing I'd point out in a kind of shameless plug of our technology is that the difference between us and a lot of other public DLTs or blockchains is that we have very low transaction fees, like extremely low, as low as 0.0001 of a cent, and that's fixed. And why that's relevant is because, as you probably know, Maha, and maybe some of our viewers, is that most other networks have fluctuating transaction fees. So if you are an organization and you want to use DLT technology, you can't, with others, predict how much that's going to cost you.
Yes.
And the more the network gets used by others, the more expensive it becomes to use. Whereas that is not the case with Hedera. Hedera has a fixed transaction fee. So if you know, like any other business process, when you're doing financial forecasting, you can confidently financially forecast and predict what the cost of using our network is. So that, I think, and the sustainability, and I sound now like I'm really selling us, so I want to stop and get back to you.
These are very valid points. And just to add to that, the fact that we also decided to go for the partnership with yourselves was the fact that we are one of the few jurisdictions that bans the use of cryptocurrencies and stablecoins. So you're providing us with a way to basically settle using fiat or off-chain, or So that's
right. We provide that service too. Yes.
Yes. So for us, this is where it was extremely strategic as one of the few jurisdictions worldwide that does not allow the use of cryptocurrencies or stablecoins. You provide us with an alternative means for cash on ledger. So that's perfect.
Right, because the transaction fee, and again, I know you know this, but I'm just for the benefit of anyone watching who's not aware. Not only is that transaction fee low and fixed, we price it, as you say, in fiat, and we price it in dollar. And quite frankly, once you're in fiat, you can go to any other fiat, right? But which means that, like you, Qatar, and any organisation there, you don't need to hold the HBAR crypto token to use the technology. You can pay us in fiat, as you just said, and be compliant.
Yes.
Cool. What else can we ask you? Let's have a think here. So, what about you? What's your vision of how these digital asset regulations are going to evolve, especially as Qatar aims, and I think, and we think, will lead in the sectors? Where do you think this is going to go? What would you like to see?
I think what I would like to see is more and more adoption of DLT, specifically when it comes to the issuance, clearing, and settlement of securities, because I think this is where we don't have anything against the use of DLT, and it's proven to be very successful based on numerous reports that were published by the BIS and the FSB and the IMF. Like it's proven to be more efficient, more timely, specifically when you have atomic settlements, etc. So I would really like to see that as the backbone for the next capital market development in Qatar, in the region. I would also like to see the use of DLT in other non-financial sector related industries. I think we underestimate the use of DLT and blockchain in healthcare and what's going on in the world, like for charity organizations where you can have a proper track record and provide support to those in need because it's transparent. So I think that while the financial industry is the one that's usually dominating the discussions, I'm seeing it expanding to other use cases. And the fact that now we have the new kid on the block, all things AI, we have more time to focus on the proper implementation and the proper growth of DLT as a technology. And I'm seeing conversions between the two. I'm seeing that in the future, blockchain and AI are going to be inseparable in a way, because we would need the trust that DLT will be bringing to AI. So we're just starting, and we're at the very beginning of a new wave of development. The fact that I'm seeing this now in the Middle East, where it's super young in terms of their population and demographics, very tech savvy. We have very good internet and in general infrastructure that could support it. But it will just take a tiny bit of time. I'm assuming 3 to 5 years before we can say, yes, it's working, because I still feel like a lot of people are kind of skeptical about where it's going. But for me, the picture is clear. It's going to be the way forward, and it will be integrated in one way or another in the financial sector, but hopefully in other industries as well.
Yes, and it's funny. Two things come to mind that you mentioned there that are quite hot subjects. Or one, Hedera has just actually made an announcement for those of you that would like to go on hedera.com or hashgraph.swiss and have a look, involving AI. And I myself was on a panel only this week, and very much was becoming a hot subject of where, as you say, the provenance of the data that goes into making these data sets, that then goes into making these AIs, and I call it data supply chain, effectively.
Yes.
Using DLT to secure that is becoming more and more important, because once the AI creates data from corrupted data sets, you can never go back, and you always have a corrupted set of data from the source, and DLT. Using trace and tracking and verifying that data from the beginning, you have this, almost audibility, for want of a better word, which is actually what we're talking about when it comes to everything from like mining, from forests, from ESG reporting, green energy. In my mind, DLT is a great use of creating a pipeline, a supply chain, data or physical goods. And you'll be pleased to hear that I'm based in Geneva, Switzerland, where there's a lot of NGOs, United Nations, people like this. And the other thing you mentioned there, DLT for good, making sure that the right people and there's no misuse of funds is something very much that we're having discussions about. There's nothing to necessarily announce right now, but we're very much in those having those discussions about using DLC for those kinds of solutions too. You've got multiple stakeholders that are needed when it comes to this digital assets framework that had to bring us to come together here. Can you elaborate a little bit? I don't know how much you can say, but could you elaborate a little bit on how that collaboration shaped and brought these final regulatory guidelines?
This is okay. It will take a bit of
I don't know how much you can say.
No. I think it's a very good question, but I'm just trying to think of how to best answer it. We have different layers or aspects when we're talking about that. First of all, we issued a consultation and we got a pretty good amount of feedback from industry participants, be it from incumbent startups and associations. So that was the first way of us engaging. Plus, we were working on this framework. It's very important to note and highlight that we did not do it alone as Qatar Financial Centre. We worked with our regulatory authority and Qatar Central Bank and the different ministries, because we wanted to also make sure that we are compliant from an ICT, from an overall technological stack point of view. So we had a stakeholder as external stakeholders, different government and ministries, and the central bank, and also looking into our own ecosystem of financial institutions, because for that to succeed, we also need to make sure that our banks, our stock exchange, etc., is on board to support this as an initiative, and the firms that would graduate from our digital asset lab, for example. So this was another layer of stakeholder management. And another aspect is that we're working and we're monitoring regulatory developments and international best practice, where our colleagues are, for example, working very closely with IOSCO or certain associations to make sure that we're always up to date and to speed of keeping our digital asset alive and relevant, because I don't think that this is something like some of the traditional finance regulations where you'll just update it and revise it every maybe 3 years. This has to constantly be up and running to cope with regulations. Exactly. Yes. So these are some of the stakeholders I was thinking of. And of course, within our digital asset lab, we provide partners like yourselves and others that will be supporting the entities that would be as a part of the digital asset lab. So I think we have engaged all of the stakeholders that we can make this possible, but it is a journey, and we will keep working on it to make it perfect.
So we're delighted as the Hashgraph Association with Hedera to be on this journey with you and Qatar and QFC and everything we've discussed today. And especially as we've had this digital assets venture studio. We've got 50 million there to help build out and encourage and incentivize meaningful. I have to add meaningful incentives. We've got to build sustainable businesses that are going to grow too. So for those watching who would like to get involved, maybe how people get involved. Have you got a website you could share with some people? Or what do we do here, Maha?
Yes, so please do reach out to us. Our website is www.qfc.qa. We have a dedicated section for our digital assets participants. You could also enroll in a digital asset lab by filling in a self-evaluation form. And we have also a dedicated email address by which you can contact us on it. We are here. We usually respond within 3 working days tops. So do reach out. Share your ideas with us and make use of our lab, the 50 million that we have on the table as well. And we might be providing additional incentives if we see that the firm is really, as you rightly mentioned, has a sustainable business model and also is in line with the Qatar national vision and the third financial sector strategy and our fintech strategy. So in addition to that, there could be some incentives that we provide real good participants to make Qatar even more attractive for them to launch their business.
That sounds amazing. The other ways also you can contact us. Our website is hashgraph.swiss. again, like you said, I won't go over it too much. Like you can find contacts there. I'm on LinkedIn, for example. We have a LinkedIn page. There's, if you want to find us, it's not hard to find us and get in touch with us for sure.
Yeah.
Well, look, I hope to see you again, face to face, real. Not virtually.
What's coming? Latest February.
Well, I'd love to. I mean, I had my first visit this year, as you know, to Doha, to Qatar. I actually was on 2 panel talks about circular economy, and there you go. There's another great use case for DLT.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in my mind, it goes back to traceability and if you could provenance, right? If you've got the provenance and trusted provenance of a supply chain, or whether that be data or clothing, as they were talking about in Doha, DLT it fits it perfectly for this, is my mind. But anyway, I had a great time there discovering it. Quickly popped to your office, said hello to you, as you probably remember.
Yes.
And I hope to see you again soon in Qatar, in Doha.
Looking forward to it as well.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Maha, and sharing and spending some time with us.
Thank you so much for having me and for providing me with this opportunity.
It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.